Bloons Tower Defense 6. A game about defending against bloons. A lot of bloons with towers. But really, the towers are something far greater than their name would suggest. They are the peak of rejecting modernity. The one, the only, the monkey. Now, what are bloons, you ask? They're balloons. Come on now. How do the monkeys defend against the ceaseless onslaught of the aggressive, expansionist, totalitarian military of the evil bloon? Popping them with darts, of course. For centuries, these malevolent bloons have tried to enforce their will upon the humble monkey and their lifestyle. One day, a singular monkey in particular had enough. He looked down upon the bloons and he whispered, "No." This monkey led his people to a response, one which they found appropriate. Violence with extreme prejudice. Bloons Tower Defense 6 is, unsurprisingly, first and foremost a tower defense. As the numbered title would insinuate, this is the 6th definitive installment for the franchise, even though they have plenty of offshoots. I'm specifically covering 6 because it is by far the one I personally have had the most experience with. The next being 5, where I actually started in the franchise, enticed by my nephew's explanation of the game, convincing me with one single word: monkey. Now you might take a look at this game and say, hey, this is a child's game. To that kind sir, I say go straight to hell, do not pass go, and do not collect $200. While it certainly is kid-friendly, it also has very in-depth mechanics that challenge even veteran players. If you're starting this game completely fresh, you have a lot of grinding to get to, but don't worry, it's a fun grind. You'll first notice that there are heroes. These are special towers. You can only select one hero to use on a map. Before I dive into what each hero, and tower for that matter, is good and bad at, we should learn some raw basics of the game. First of all, each map is unique and separated by a difficulty bracket: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. This is based off the length of the lane, how many lanes there are, what kind of obstructions and line-of-sight issues there may be to deal with, and the amount of room you have to build towers. The early maps can be quite easy and fun, and alternatively, the later maps can be insanely challenging and infuriating. Once you've picked a map, you should know what kind of enemies you're up against so you know what kind of towers to invest in. Bloons come in many colors, and each of these colors has a meaning. And you should know what bloons to expect at what rounds. The most basic of all bloons is the simple red bloon. It moves down the lane at a fairly slow speed, and only takes one hit from any tower to be popped. Because this bloon is so basic, and takes one hit to eradicate, they are used in an abbreviated term, RBE, meaning red bloon equivalent. While this term is no longer officially used in BTD 6, it was mostly used in the 4th and 5th installment of the franchise. It's still a term many in the community use. For example, the first round of the game spawns 20 red bloons, thereby having an RBE of 20. The third round, however, spawns 25 red and 5 blue, but has an RBE of 35. This is because blue bloons, the next color in line after red, each also spawn a red bloon when you pop them, for a total of 35 pops required out of the 30 that spawn. Because the 5 blue also became 5 red. Get the idea? So after blue comes green, and a new explanation from me about family and where babies come from. When a mommy and daddy bloon love each other very much, they rub vigorously fast against one another, causing enough friction to spawn another bloon into existence. I want you to sit there and think about parents, children, grandparents, the whole shebang. In this scenario, you have a parent and a child. Now, picture yourself as the blue bloon. Why? Because the red bloon is your child and the green bloon is your parent, thereby making the green bloon the grandparent of the red bloon. Next up is Old Yeller, the yellow bloon. It is the parent of green and moves pretty fast compared to the previous bloons. Their parents had a divorce, and the yellow bloon was tossed around between the homes of the white, black, and pink bloons. At this point, I think you're understanding the concept. Pop a higher tier bloon and it spawns the lower tier bloon. So you need to be on your toes and pop everything, yeah? Consider this as a bloon's lairs, and damage to a bloon takes a lair health system into account. Some damage types can pop beyond just that initial layer, and you will go right through those layers as appropriate for the damage dealt, descending down the family line. So from here on, I'm just going to focus on what specific Bloon types you need to look out for and why. Bloons can start having a regrow property at round 17, making them slowly regenerate their previously tiered Bloon health if not popped fast enough. Black Bloons at round 20 are immune to explosive damage, while white Bloons at round 22 can't be frozen. At round 26, you'll see zebra-colored Bloons. These are a combination of black and white, becoming immune to both explosive and freezing. Bloons also start being able to camouflage themselves at round 24, so without a monkey that has an ability to detect camo, they'll slip right under your radar. Spawning in at round 25, the purple Bloon is immune to pretty much everything other than sharp attacks, while the lead Bloon at round 28 is immune to sharp and laser attacks. Rolling down the lane in round 35 is the rainbow Bloon. These bastards are easy to pop, but that's not their problem. The problem is that they have an RBE of 47, spawning in 2 zebra Bloons when you pop them. When you hit round 38, you're gonna have some of these poop-colored boys coming your way, the ceramic Bloon. They take 10 hits, also considered 10 health, to pop and are the parent to 2 rainbow Bloons. Round 40 is a very important round. You get your taste of what the Bloon military truly has up its sleeve. The mighty Moab, the mother of all Bloons, the massive ornery air blimp. This big blue mommy has a whopping 200 health, and is the parent of 4 ceramic Bloons and totaling at 616 RBE. At round 45, you'll start seeing fortified lead Bloons, fortified ceramics at 46, and fortified Moabs at 62. The fortified property simply means their effective health is increased, quadrupled for leads, doubled for ceramics and Moabs. At round 60, you'll encounter a BFB, a big f***ing Bloon. A brutal floating behemoth. These big red Angie boys have a staggering 700 health and are a parent of 4 full-fledged Moabs. The size of the BFB is its greatest weakness, slowing it down and allowing towers with multiple projectiles to shotgun it down quickly. The ZOMG floats in at round 80. The Zeppelin of mighty gargantuanness has 4,000 health, and, you guessed it, is the parent of 4 BFBs. The DDT, or Dark Dirigible Titan, is a very unique class of Moab, in that it has only 480 health, but moves very fast and naturally has black, lead, and camo properties. Be ready to either have a way to obliterate them or slow them down long enough to get that work in, because they zoom by on round 90 and are the bane of many people's runs trying to breach round 100. Speaking of round 100, the big airship of doom hovers above as a reminder of why people poop and pee their pants. The bad rolls in with 28,000 health and is the parent of 2 ZOMGs and 3 DDTs. If you have not correctly prepared for this encounter, this big-ass purple Moab will steam right through you. So, now that you know the enemies you face, we should cover the towers and the heroes of the game. Let us start with the humble Dart Monkey, the mainstay baseline tower for the entire franchise's existence. Before I go into detail, there are 3 things you should know about every tower/monkey in the game. First, they have 3 paths which you can upgrade to increase their effectiveness. Each path has 5 tiers, and usually drastically changes their playstyle. You can upgrade one of these tiers within the path up to 5, and sub a second path up to tier 2, so always be mindful of what you're pairing together. Also note, once you upgrade a path to tier 5, you cannot have another tier 5 of the same path. Second, if you're starting fresh, you'll notice these paths are locked off, and you are required to get some XP to unlock them. All that means is you need to actively use these monkeys to earn that XP to be able to unlock them. You get more EXP from using them before a map goes into, quote, free play, which is the mode the map transitions into once you've finished the primary goal. So if you're trying to farm a specific tower, try to actively be using them. Third, every tower has a classification group: primary, military, magic, and support. This only matters for a few specific mechanics within the game, so don't worry about it too much. Also, as a general rule, always be mindful of your placement on the map. Keep in mind what the towers are good at, and position them accordingly in their ideal location. Suboptimal placement of a tower can literally be the difference between success and failure. Let's start with the primary classification. Considering the dart monkey is the most standard of all monkeys, don't think that makes their path choices any less meaningful. Their first path turns them into a spike-balled, catapult-wielding juggernaut. This offers the dart monkey a decently cost-effective way to pop lead and deal more damage to ceramic. The second path leads them to being able to transform themselves and other dart monkeys around them into better versions of themselves, dealing massively increased damage for a short time. The third path leads to one of the cheapest ways to gain camo detection and eventually equips them with a crossbow for great damage, attack speed, critical hits, and pierce. The boomerang monkey is a tower that channels their inner Aussie. Their first path turns them into a cleaving master, bouncing glaives between multiple bloons, as well as eventually gaining an aura of rotating glaives that takes down nearby bloons and augmenting their main glaive attack with a potent damage over time. The second path gives them a powerful active ability that increases their damage and grants them tremendously increased attack speed for 10 seconds with a 45-second cooldown. And the third path goes full-blown Bonzastraya, beefing up their boomerangs for an early cheap means of popping lead, and a slight CC with an increased damage to Moabs. The dart monkey and the boomerang monkey are special in that they both have, in a way, a tier 6 upgrade called Paragon. This requires not only a crazy amount of cash, but for a tier 5 of each path to be placed on the map as well. Once you have a tier 5 of each, you choose one of them to become the Paragon, which absorbs all of that unit on the entire map and calculates all of the cash you've spent on all of them and their combined kill count to make one omega powerful tower. Once the Paragon is placed, you can also freely make the tier 5s of those monkeys once again, but only one Paragon of each type can be on the map at a time. The bomb shooter is all about those big bombs. As an explosive master, the bomb shooter pops lead all by itself from the start, but without help will be useless against black bloons with their explosive immunity. The first path causes heavy damage on top of a hard stun. And that's about it. The second path focuses on dealing increased damage specifically to the Moab class, with an active ability that targets the strongest Moab on the screen. And the third path excels in splash damage, and eventually leads to a passive ability that triggers once a sneaky bloon leaks, causing a map-wide explosion that clears all but the biggest bloons. The Tack Shooter is my personal favorite base monkey tower of the game. Why? Because they kick a whole lot of ass, and it's such a tight little package. They're quite versatile and very fun to mess around with. These tacky boys erupt in a circle of, well, tacks, popping bloons all around them. Their first path leads to Fiery Tacks, which is an early means of popping lead, and eventually leads to an Inferno Ring, an enormous circle of fire that melts down any bloon who dares get close, making them nice and crispy. The second path goes to Shop class and throws out Circular Saws. By itself, this path isn't that powerful, but it comes with an active ability that covers the screen and saws in a circular motion, cleaving down the map of bloons. And the third path is, oh, well, it's beautiful. This path leads to the Tack Zone, a machine gun of tacks that is perfect for shotgunning large targets around corners. The Ice Monkey goes brrr. Each and every path leads to a formidable form of crowd control, but with a drawback that, without using one of the means of bypassing it, frozen bloons cannot be popped by sharp attacks. Their first path leads to a good way to detect and strip down camo from bloons, while debuffing them, causing them to take more damage. This also eventually applies to Moabs as well. The second path leads to a large area of effect that slows bloons within the radius, as well as the unique ability to freeze water to allow you to place land-based towers on water. They also gain an active ability that slows all bloons on screen. And the third path equips them with a cannon that launches snowballs from hell, leading to some alright cleave damage and eventually provides them a means to damage and slow Moab-class bloons. The Glue Gunner fires a goo shot. This is usually used as a means to slow bloons down on their approach. Their first path leads to the goo becoming corrosive and damaging, excellent at tackling ceramic bloons. The second path leads to a decent slowing capability while offering an active ability that slows Bloons on the map and applying a debuff to them, causing them to take more damage. And the third path leads to the most overall reliable slow the Gooey Boy offers. That leads us to the next classification of monkey towers, the military. Most military towers have ways to detect camo, pop lead, and have unique ways of targeting Bloons across the map. First up is the Sniper Monkey, my second favorite tower in the game because of their versatility. Their first path offers a lot of precise damage, and one of the cheapest early game means of popping lead, as well as frozen. They are eventually able to deal more damage to Moabs while immobilizing them and making them take more damage from all sources. The second path leads to one of the cheapest early game means of camo detection, while offering the sniper some much needed cleave damage with bouncing bullets. They are also eventually able to call in supply drops to keep that cash flowing, while giving all other snipers increased attack speed. And the third path offers them insane attack speed. With a passive that, when a life is lost, i.e. you've leaked a Bloon, they attack 4 times faster on top of that. Now, if only there was a way to force yourself to lose lives to trigger the effect. The Monkey Sub is the first of a few unique towers that can only be placed on water. Not every map has water, though you can remedy that with a limited usable item in most cases. Their first path allows the sub to shoot through the eyes of any other monkey tower as long as they are within line of sight. Cheap and early camo stripping for the whole group, as well as a radius of damage over time and a global reduction of cooldown for active abilities. The second path leads to early lead popping, as well as specializing in taking down Moabs with missiles. And the third path focuses on raw damage output while increasing the damage of every other nearby sub. The Monkey Buccaneer is another water-based tower. Their first path leads to good attack speed, and eventually full map coverage by turning the Buccaneer into a StarCraft carrier.
Carrier has arrived.
The second path leads to excellent Moab damage, as well as an ability to completely devour most Moab-class Bloons. And the third path serves as a reminder of the only time the British were even remotely relevant by creating a naval trading empire. The Monkey Ace is an airborne tower that naturally has full map coverage, albeit a bit of an unreliable pathing, but you can get some help with micromanagement. The first path leads to incredible attack speed and excellent Moab damage. The second path leads to the Ace dropping explosive bombs on the path. Even when fully upgraded, this path is honestly the weakest of all paths. It slightly makes up for it for a powerful active ability that deals massive damage to Bloons on the map. And the third path leads to hands down one of the best base tier 5 towers in the entire game. It is very expensive, so unless you plan to stay deep into the rounds, it will almost never be worth it, but if you do, it will maintain as one of your highest popping towers built. The Heli Pilot is another airborne tower that follows your mouse cursor and fires in front of itself. The first path allows them to move on their own, following the foremost Bloon on the path, and granting them the ability to pop lead, and overall damage bonuses, making them a potent damage dealing tower. The second path leads to early and cheap camo detection, a passive that pushes Bloons back, as well as later gaining the ability to pick up and move most of the monkeys in the game after being placed on the map, as well as summoning a monkey gunner to drop down and blap blap Bloons where they land. And the third path grants them faster attack speed, a slight Moab pushback, and eventually summoning smaller heli whoppers to fight with them, collectively dealing some pretty good damage. The mortar monkey goes boom, 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 boom. You have to select their bombing path, and if you want them to maintain damage on a specific target while it moves, you better be ready for some crazy micromanagement. Their first path leads to bigger booms and multi-layered popping power. The second path leads to quicker boom booms, with an active ability that stuns Bloons on the map and deals damage to them. And the third path leads to stripping any Bloons hit of their camo, regrow, and fortified properties, as well as raining napalm hell upon the Bloons. If placed correctly, the tier 5 of this path will deal insane popping damage overall. Added fairly late after the initial release, the Dartling Gunner is a minigun wielding madman who unleashes hell wherever you are pointing your cursor. You can also set for them to just target a specific area in a way like the mortar. Their first path leads to a focused laser beam of infernal decimation that pierces through pretty much as many Bloons as it has to clear down any path you pointed down. Such power is locked behind the incredibly high cost of the tower's tier 5 upgrade. The second path leads you to an early and cheap camo detection, as well as leading to missiles that damage all Bloon types, and an active ability that focuses on taking down Moabs. And the third path leads to more barrels of heavy buckshot damage, and the passive ability to target balloons on its own instead of at your cursor for better focused fire. This leads us to the Magic classification. The Wizard Monkey is a perfect paradigm to represent the Magic class. Each path is quite distinct, serving different roles, bundled up with that enigmatic essence of esotericism. They wiggle fingies and make boom booms. Their first path leads to the height of wizardry. Think if Dumbledore had his gay baby with Gandalf, and the baby's godfather was Merlin. The second path focuses on being a pyromancer, laying fire on the map for balloons to pass through, channeling a font of conflagration, and eventually leading to a summonable phoenix to cover the map in crispy flames. As you might assume, this path excels at taking down lead and ceramic-based balloons. And the third path leads to an early and cheap camo detection, camo stripping for other towers, and dark necromantic magic. Raise balloons from the dead to move in reverse of the path and force them to murder their previous family by colliding into oncoming balloons. This can be very effective on mini-map paths, as well as offering a sharp piercing attack to the wizard, which they are otherwise unable to achieve, allowing them to now pop purple balloons. The Super Monkey is without a doubt, overall, the most powerful monkey in the game, for a multitude of reasons. Their first path I'm going to explain after the second and third paths, so hold on to your undies. The second path leads to the Super Monkey becoming RoboCop, dual-wielding plasma cannons, and gaining an active ability that eradicates balloon in a radius around them. And the third path leads to the Super Monkey becoming Batman. Now, do note, the Super Monkey starts out as Superman and upgrades to Batman, further proof that Batman is better than Superman. Anyway, this path leads to a knockback CC, early camo detection, and excellent piercing damage that especially is effective against Moab-class balloons. And they gain an ability to reposition the tower within a specified range. Now, back to the first path, which leads to a sunbeam-cleaving monkey temple. However, when you get to the fourth tier, it will sacrifice and absorb nearby monkeys, other than a few specific types like heroes and paragons, increasing its power. And the same happens at the fifth tier as well. There is more to this though, because the amount of cash you spend on the towers it absorbs, and the classification of those towers, directly affects how powerful it will become. To get the absolute best outcome, on the fourth tier you need to sacrifice a minimum of 50,000 cash on 3 different classifications between primary, military, magic, and support. So a total of 150,000. For the fifth tier, you need to sacrifice 50,000 from all 4 classifications, so a total of 200,000. But we're not done yet. You see, there is a mechanic in this game called Monkey Knowledge, which is a currency you earn as you play, level, and get rewarded from completed achievements, which you will spend on a kind of talent tree to further enhance the capabilities of all of your monkeys. One of these is called There Can Only Be One, which in a way adds a 6th tier to your Super Monkey's first path. How do you make use of it? When you're ready to upgrade to the 5th tier, you must also have a 5th tier of the 2nd and 3rd path Super Monkey, but outside of the range of the first path, which will then also be absorbed to transform the Super Monkey into the single most powerful tower in the entire game. The Vengeful True Sun God. Even though it absorbed the 5th tier of the 2nd and 3rd path, you will not be able to make them again on a map with the Vengeful True Sun God like you can with the Paragons. The Ninja Monkey is an incredibly useful monkey, as the tower all by itself will always naturally have camo detection, and 2 of the paths lead to some of the best towers in the game. Their first path leads to a Master of Shuriken Tossing with some amazing damage. While straightforward, it is incredibly powerful. If this path is correctly supported, it's one of the best towers in the game. The second path leads to one of the most important ways to buff the first path, as the third tier grants increased attack speed to all other ninja monkeys in range, stacking 20 times. Get 20 of these bad boys in range and watch a flurry of shurikens fill your screen. This path also leads to an active ability that leads to Bloons, and at tier 5 even Moabs, to spawn with less health while the ability is active. Even if you throw a tech bot on this unit, which is a consumable that will activate the ability whenever it's up, will lead to an insane pop count on the tower, being surpassed only by 2 other towers, one clearly being the Vengeful True Sun God. The third path is less impressive, but still useful. It leads to the only way ninjas can naturally have lead popping power, with a hard stun, and eventually leads to a bomb the ninja throws at Moabs, dealing massive damage to them. Next up is the Alchemist Monkey, one of the most useful support towers in the game, while not being support in classification, only in usefulness. Their first path leads to a brew they throw at allies, which, while active, allows any tower to pop lead, and deal increased damage to ceramic and Moab balloons, leading to even more damage range and attack speed, and at a high cost can even make these effects permanent. By far the most important buff to give your offensive towers. The second path leads to an offensive-based alchemist that can deal good AoE damage, and gives them an ability that transforms them into the Mr. Hyde of the alchemist's Dr. Jekyll. The fifth tier gives them an ability to transform up to 5 other monkeys near them, but only tier 3 monkeys. And they must also be an actual monkey, like the ninja or dart monkey. And the third path leads to the glory of transmutation, giving the alchemist a way to receive more cash, by giving them increased cash upon personally destroying lead balloons, debuffing balloons they hit, coating them in gold, making them give more cash when popped. But at their 5th tier, something quite different happens. They gain the passive ability to, every 10 seconds, transform the strongest balloon on screen, even Moabs other than Bads, into red balloons. Yes, this actually reduces the amount of cash earned, as you are now popping only the red balloon versus the previous balloon and all of their children. And yes, this also counts for this tower's pop count. What does that mean? That means if you're using one, they will probably have a higher pop count than even your Vengeful True Sun God. The Druid is a master of storm, nature, and wrath, that kind of thing. Their first path focuses on storm, gaining a chain lightning attack, a pushback for balloons, balls of lightning, and tornadoes. The second path focuses on nature, learning to use entangling vines to hold balloons in place while they're shredded down to size, and gaining ways to generate more cash. And the third path focuses on wrath, gaining crazy attack speed, in a similar fashion to ninjas, a scaling attack speed for other druids of this path in range, up to 5. And eventually the Avatar of Wrath. They're so heckin' angry at balloons that they gain a scaling damage for every RBE on screen. Now we're at the last classification of monkey towers, the support classification, which, as you might suspect, generally focuses on supporting other towers, but that's not exclusive to this class either. The first up is the Banana Farm, which serves only one purpose regardless of path: cash generation. Their first path leads to the best raw amount of generated source of monkey currency, Baneeners. The drawbacks here are that you need to hover over the Badoinkers to collect them before they fade away, and the cost of the 5th tier is quite expensive. The second path leads to banking. You no longer have to collect them on screen, as it will be deposited into your own private account and collect interest. Be careful though, your capital has a cap, so you don't want to lose out on those earnings. You'll also be able to take out loans and pay them back over time. And at their 5th tier, become a true American bank, magically generating cash from nothing and pretending all will work out just fine. And the third path becomes a bizarre marketplace for nanners, passively generating cash over time and collecting said nanners all on its own. By far the easiest path to use, as everything becomes 100% passive. Next up is the Spike Factory, the clear exception to the quote support role in this classification. This tower barfs out spikes onto the track, and each path focuses on specific damage types for said spikes. It is often best to place this tower at the very end of the path, so each round has maximum uptime of barfing out spikes, as the spikes placed are lost upon each new round starting. Their first path focuses on turning the spikes into mines for massive damage, gaining early lead and frozen popping power, increased pierce, damage, ceramic damage, and splash damage from the mines exploding. The second path increases how quickly the spikes are generated, sharpens those pointy bits to shred Moab-class Bloons specifically, and gaining an active ability that covers the entire path in spikes, as well as a passive that continually covers the map in spikes all on its own. And the third path focuses on giving the spikes longevity, being able to overlap rounds and serve as a perfect last line of defense. Then there is the Monkey Village, an excellent tower you will almost always use in some way, shape, or form on just about every map you play. Their first path leads to a flat increase of attack speed for any monkey tower in range, and from there, insane buffs to specifically primary classification-based towers. It is simply a must-have if you're focusing on primary monkeys, as it buffs their range, pierce, projectile speed, reduces cooldowns, and at Tier 5 gives the Monkey Village its only means of attacking on its own, which has full map coverage of a bouncing blade that actually deals some pretty decent damage. The second path leads to camo detection for any tower in range. Then, Monkey Intelligence Bureau, which gives any monkey tower in range the ability to target any Bloon type. For example, that means any piercing-based tower that couldn't pop lead now can, and conversely, any magic-based tower that couldn't pop purple now can as well. From here, this path leads to an active ability that increases the attack speed and pierce of all monkeys in range, and at Tier 5 makes that active ability map-wide. And the third path leads to some unique strategies, as the first few tiers grant a discount to upgrades for monkey up to certain tiers, granting increased cash generation to monkeys in range, a way to generate a free dart monkey each round, and eventually the ability to absorb banana farms at Tier 4 in range and generates increased income based on what was absorbed. This leads us to the last base tower, the Engineer Monkey. This engineer has some interesting paths that all lead to very different mechanics, all useful and powerful in their own right. Their first path leads to the traditional turret user, throwing down sentries that deal some great damage, that increase in damage and usefulness with each tiered upgrade, eventually leading to plasma-spewing monsters that explode when their time is up on screen for some good AoE damage. The second path leads to some unique supportive abilities, first of which is a cleansing foam spewed on the path that strips Bloons of their camo if they run over it, and an active ability, Overclock, that allows you to target a specific tower and grant them increased attack speed, or range of a monkey village, or even the effectiveness of banana farms. And at Tier 5, Overclock applies a permanent buff that scales up to 10 times, effectively granting that tower permanently, passively, Overclock, allowing you to massively buff all powerful towers on screen. This upgrade is incredibly expensive and time-consuming to use to full effect, so consider only using this if you plan to go very deep in a run. And the third path leads to some okay CC, some okay damage, but the ability to lay a trap for Bloons. This trap absorbs Bloons that run through it, eventually filling up and rewarding you with a fat stack of cash. Now, let's talk about heroes. As I've already mentioned, you can only choose one hero. Each hero has a unique kit of tools that can either serve as a potent damage dealer on your team, or be used as a powerful support for the towers you plan to build. Heroes have 20 levels and gain XP for each round they are placed, so placing them early can be very important to make sure they are leveled up as quickly as can be. If you absolutely need them to level up for a certain mechanic before they'll naturally get it, you can throw some cash at them to level them up quicker. But that's money that could be spent on other towers, so spend wisely. Quincy is an archery master and effectively a jack of all trades. He will eventually be able to naturally detect camo Bloons, and every third shot from his arrow will eventually shoot out an explosive shot, dealing, you guessed it, explosive damage. His first active ability makes him shoot super fast, and his second deals area of effect around the Bloon he targets with the ability. He's excellent as the starter hero, but he definitely gets outperformed by quite a few other heroes. Glundolin is a pyromaniac that sees a very simple solution to the Bloon invasion. Set the world on fire, baby. Being fire-based, she can be a reliable way to deal with lead very early on, but she struggles against purple and camo Bloons. The main reason you might want to use her though is her passive, Heated Up, where she releases a heat wave, dealing damage to nearby Bloons. But more importantly, buffs other nearby towers with fiery weapons, allowing them to also pop lead if they otherwise couldn't, and giving them more pierce and eventually more layer popping and extra damage to lead balloons. Her first ability is a simple Molotov cocktail, which leaves a fiery patch on the ground. And her second is a massive AoE that damages all balloons on screen, as well as applying Heated Up to all of your towers. Striker Jones is a bazooka booming explosive specialist. Passively by himself, he's honestly one of the worst heroes in the roster. However, if you're a fan of very active playstyles and know how to pair him well with other towers, he can become extremely useful. Pair him with a combo of explosive-based monkeys, especially those with active abilities, and watch them blow the world to hell. His first ability is a quick cooldown that blaps the strongest balloon on screen, stunning it in the process. His second ability resets the cooldown on Bomb Shooter and Mortar Monkeys, as well as increasing the damage of both towers. Oban Greenfoot is a druid straight out of Warcraft. Speaking of druids, if you're going to use Oban, use the actual druid towers. And not only that, make sure you get an Avatar of Wrath rolling. Especially if you do that, Oban is great, but even if you don't, he buffs other magic-based monkeys pretty good. He is amazing for the early game, as his attack chains to balloons and pops lead naturally. And with his abilities, if you time them right and have RNG on your side, also pop camo, though a bit more unreliably. Both of his active abilities cover a section of the map as a blockade for balloons, the second giving some banana cash upon expiration. Captain Churchill. What can I say about this tank-driving bad boy? He hits decently hard, and eventually attacks separate from his piloted tank, granting both a piercing attack and an explosive attack, while also getting camo detection before too late into his levels. He covers a lot of bases, and his active abilities deal good Moab damage. But for a hero, he is by far the most expensive. While good, in my opinion, he does not offer nearly enough compared to the other heroes to ever justify this cost. Benjamin is a super crafty little bastard, and one of the best heroes in the game. He is used as more of a raw support hero rather than offering direct damage. First, he passively generates cash each round, and gains cash for each new balloon spawned, which is incredibly useful and quickly recovers his above average cost. He also sends out a Bloon Trojan that debuffs a balloon to be unable to spawn its children once popped, but increases the amount of cash you receive from the pop to compensate for not slaughtering the children. This goes up and down at various stages of the game whether it's more profitable with or without this mechanic, but all of the other means of generating cash more than make up for it, and by mid to late game almost all forms of this debuff are a net gain. His first ability gives the 4 closest monkeys a buff that make them pop more layers per attack for 6 seconds, but they're shut down for 2 seconds, so be very aware when you're activating it. The second causes newly spawned balloons for 10 seconds after using this ability to spawn at 1 rank lower, and offer double, and at higher levels triple, cash from popped downgraded balloons. Azili is a pretty solid hero with a rock-solid kit, all while being one of the cheapest heroes in the game. As soon as you place her on the map, she is able to pop everything but purple with her damage over time applying base attack. Azili has 3 active abilities, the first preventing regrow balloons on screen from regrowing for a short time. The second sacrifices some lives to plant a totem that increases pierce, range, and attack speed of nearby towers. The third is an omega powerful damage over time that is placed on the strongest Moab on screen. If that Moab dies, it prevents them from spawning children, while still giving full Banoi noise, and then it moves to the next Moab until its duration is up. Pat Fusty is a thick angy boy. I'm not gonna lie, though I try to play just about everything with the games I decide to talk about, other than when I've been forced to use this guy for specific challenges, I've never really tinkered with him. He focuses on giving passing balloons the backhand pimp slap. He deals okay damage, and he slaps hard enough to naturally pop lead, but I just wasn't a fan. His first ability is the only thing I think keeps him even remotely decent, where he lets out a roar, increasing the pop count of all towers near him for a limited time. The second active ability makes Pat grab the nearest Moab and crushes it between his massive thighs. Adora is a priestess of monkeydom, who brings the wrath of the holy sun god down upon the filthy balloon. She serves as a pretty decent damage-dealing hero, as long as she is properly supported, as she is unable to target camo, and can only damage purple with her first ability active, which gives her a raw boost to range and power. Her third ability summons a ball of devastating holy light, that shreds down Bloons. Hopefully you noticed I skipped her second ability. Here's why. Her second ability sacrifices a monkey in order to give herself some XP based on how much the unit cost, but also increases the attack speed and range for herself and Sun avatars, which includes Sun temples and even the almighty Vengeful True Sun God, which has a unique interaction with Adora, forcing her to listen to Linkin Park and making her infinitely more awesome. Because of this, Adora is one of the best endgame heroes, but she's not the only one. Admiral Brickle is the only naval-based hero, requiring water on the map to be placed, and is quite badass to be honest. She's an okay damage-dealing hero, with a sharp, piercing main attack, and a passive that drops bombs in nearby water, which pop lead, and eventually gains natural camo detection. Her main power comes from her abilities, the second of which drops a massive bomb that deals heavy explosive AoE damage. Uh-oh, did I skip her first ability? I wonder why that would be. When activated, she grants nearby water-based towers massively increased attack speed and increased pierce, and eventually targets all water-based towers with this active ability. This ability also has a unique interaction with the almighty powerful Vengeful True Sun God, in which if you place the aforementioned Vengeful True Sun God on water via an Ice Monkey's Path 2 platform or the consumable Pontoon, they will be construed as a water-based tower and gain this buff as well, making Brickle a top contender with Adora for the best endgame hero to scale with the Vengeful True Sun God. In fact, I prefer her, as it's far easier to control activating her ability over the micromanaging of Adora's sacrifice. Brickle does come with the caveat of requiring water for both units, however. Edian is a rich nerd who employs his drone army to serve as an overall solid damage-based hero, but he offers one support mechanic that can be pretty damn useful. At a pretty early level, he gives every single tower on map natural camo detection. Both of his active abilities are just buffs to his various types of drones. Edian has one massive downside in that he can in no way, shape, or form benefit from an alchemist's buffs. Sada is, depending on the map, contender for the best raw damage dealing hero in the game. She has very short range, as she is restricted to her dual-wielded swords, but has very high attack speed. She has natural camo detection, and eventually through leveling she can damage all types of balloons. But you'll still want to buff her up for maximum output. Her first active ability makes her leap to a balloon and leave some swords planted, remaining on the map for a duration, damaging any balloon that passes through them. Her second makes her do a sweep down the paths of the map, cleaving down balloons along the way. Sai uses, I bet you can't guess, psychic energy to damage balloons. This is a unique hero because Sai's attack covers the whole map with natural camo detection. Sai's overall damage is just okay, so you might want to focus on support via active abilities to stun and blow back balloons. Decent for early rounds, you want to look elsewhere if you're looking to push to 100 and beyond though, as Sai's attack can literally never affect bads. Now that you know how to play this game and instantly become a master of balloon slaying, go buy the game. It's crazy cheap for how much content there is, and if you want to wait for it to go on sale, you can grab it potentially for as little as $1. Earn medals on every map, complete daily challenges, weekly races, weekly odysseys, seasonal events, and Omega difficult boss Moabs every week. All of this and more is awaiting you now. You might ask why I'm not covering all of that. Well, this video is already far longer than I anticipated, and, you should honestly play this game for yourself. And if I've enticed you at all, that's all the more to experience all on your own. At this point, I'd be baffled if you're here, but hey, if you are still here, thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you. If you have something you want to hear me talk about, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Or give me a verbal lashing. At any rate, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video, subscribed, hit that sub bell, all the usual. Have a hell of a time out there, monkeys. Now this is where I'd usually end the video, but I've seen people say that round 350 can't be beaten anymore, even on easy and on a simple map. To that I say poopycock. My offering to you, witness the cancerous, clustered glory of the crap shack that is playing at round 350.